Hello everyone and welcome. The second version of our plugin has been launched and it's now available on the Food4Rhino plugins page under the same name, OKIE5-AI. This release focuses on session agents or agents that share the same context to solve problems collaboratively. We have also added new load content and utilities component that we hope you find useful. If you have not already, we encourage you to watch the first tutorial to learn how to get started, since this tutorial builds on the components introduced in version 1. And the tutorial can be found on the Food4Rhino's page as well, or on our YouTube channel. And with that, let's get started. To get started, the first step is to make sure the sessions are activated for Ollama. For that, we have to go into the environments variable to create these two new entries. It's best to set these new values depending on the use case of how many sessions and models you need or expect to have active at one time. Once these are created, we can select OK on all options, and we can move on to Grasshopper. Back in Grasshopper, we see the general request agent introduced in version 1. It works great for a simple isolated task since it loads in its own model and its own prompt and produces an output that can then be passed to another agent. But unfortunately, there's no feedback loop, no conversation, and no interaction between the agents other than this handoff. And if another agent is wanting to load the output of this model, it has to be collapsed into a multi-line merge tool, which basically takes a flat list and merges it into a single index in order to load all of the prompt material as one input. Session agents are a little bit different because they have shared parameters. So right here, we can see that they share a session ID. They also share a session activation toggle and some sort of format or context with a word count that allows them to be bound within the same context as they're starting to work through the different prompts that they're given. There's also a response and context link between these two, which allows for a similar interaction that occurred between these two, but in a way where it reinforces it based off of the context that they're both a part of. So what this means is if we ask one of these agents to perform a task, and then we ask the other one what task was performed, it's essentially giving the same prompt to both agents, but not necessarily prompting a response from the second agent. It's just kind of aware of what's going on inside of here based off the linked context window. And they produce outputs that can then be collaboratively generated once they're put into specific sequences. The second version of the conversational session agent is not isolated. It's a grouped pair of two agents that both have their own prompt, they both have their own model, and a set number of turns with a shared context. And with this, they're able to actually hold conversations back and forth, where the first round of conversation is basically analyzing what's being asked, strategizing on how to solve the problem or what examples to pull from the context, and then different troubleshooting ways of refining those different outputs in order to give a final result. And the last turn inside of their exchange is always a synopsis of what was discovered, what is output, and what was learned from that experience in order to pass on the information. So the way that this is set up with the content is that there are two separate models that are being input as a string. The splitter is basically just grabbing the model name as we had seen in previous examples. And then we also have a different index number. So we're grabbing 4 and 3, which would be Mistral and Lava. And in the second one, we actually have the context coming in where we're grabbing a specific file. We're reading the text from that file. We have a context piece that was written by the user. And inside of here, we basically have these two lists that are being produced as one list or collapsed into one single index, which we can see here. So instead of having two indexed and flat list, we once again have just the single output. So the combination of these different shared outputs in the same runtime automatically means that all of these agents are going to be inside of the same session. They're going to have the same context and they're going to be working on the same problem. To manage the output of these conversations, we've added these three tools, some of which we've seen before. The first one is the inline merge, which basically takes all of these different branches and all of these different indexes and collapse them into a single list. And this copy command is a new one where it actually allows you to copy it directly to your clipboard. So we can basically paste it into an external file or into a new context window to continue the conversation elsewhere. The other one, which was introduced in version 1, is the FIFO, the first in, first out, which basically keeps a running list through multiple sessions of the multiple 5-turn operations that this session agent is a part of. In addition to these tools below, we also have new loading tools, which allow for different context to be loaded as an image and as a PDF. In the first round version, we had the text input where we can read all of the text coming in from the files of these various formats. And now we have it from the PDF format. And that's, again, going into the inline command, which can be copied directly to the clipboard. The other new introduction to this is the image sampler, where we can grab another folder filled with images based off of their extension. We can pass it to the caption, and we can receive the caption from this, from the vision model. But the new addition is basically a way to visualize these images by producing an image sampler, where every time that this one is looped through, we can basically see the image changing in real time, all connected to this image sampler loader. We really hope that you find these tools useful and that you find a use case for them in your own work. And if there are any tools that you feel are missing or need some improvement, please let us know in the comments or contact us directly, as we're always looking for new components to add to this, as well as ways to refine the existing ones. Thank you.